from the second row of the grid. John Goss will try and spear through. He makes a pretty good start. Let's watch him though. The field goes towards the start, and he is past Rock, who made a bad start, and is back in fourth spot. It's Bob Jane on the outside after Colin Bond, but it's Bond first, and then on the outside of the big Falcon going hard was Bobby Jane, but it's the Falcon in second spot. And Bond has a long lead as they go for the first of 163 times up Mountain Straight. And the Falcon of Goss showing its great power there as it goes out after Bond.
Jesus, look at that.
And meantime at the head, it's still Bond, the number 2 for the Holden Dealer team. Way in front, braking now as he comes down towards Pitt Straight. Fast line, he's really flying in this SLR 5000. Colin Bond, a long gap back to Peter Brock. But back in the race, even though he has lost something like a quarter of an hour in the pits, is Alan Moffat in 33. John Goss is still carrying the forward flag pretty well. He's quite a way back, but he's well placed to do well if something goes wrong with those 2 leading cars. This would be a race that John Goss would dearly love to win. He's been trying for 5 years, and this is undoubtedly the main race on the Australian calendar. He'd love to knock it off. Gossy, probably the most popular driver competing here today at Mount Panorama. And he's chasing, of course, Colin Bond, going so well, though Colin had a lot of trouble last year, Will. Bear in mind that John Goss is still well placed. John Goss and Kevin Bartlett lost very little time in the pits, and they're poised for success if any trouble afflicts these 2 cars, or if the co-drivers go too slowly on this central and critical spell.
On the outside of Pitt Straight, we've got a real problem if we can get down there with the cameras. That's Alan Moffat suddenly discovering he's barely got a motor and desperately trying to get his car across the other side of the track and back to his pit group, which he's gone past. He's stopped on the outside, as you can see, of the pit row itself. He can't go back against the race direction of traffic.
Nor is he allowed to cross the line under the threat of possible disqualification. All he can do is get into the back area of the pit.
He can't get a gear at the moment.
And Alan Moffat couldn't have picked a worse place. It's like breaking down in the middle of Pitt Street in the P car.
He's got a gear and away he goes.
Yes, he's had to stop the engine, obviously, to select a gear.
And talking of things going down the drain, look at the smoke issuing from the tail of the leader. Now this is the Peter Brock, Brian Sampson car, and the picture tells the story. The disaster that people thought might happen appears to have afflicted car 1. But things are really changing here. Fairly dry down the bottom, but our cameras up top show it's pouring with rain at the top of the circuit, and things are hazardous.
Just aquaplane across the road along the curve past McPhillamy Park and bumped into the bank bloody heavily. It just rammed into the earth bank, and it got sort of caught in the gutter, and with that blown right front tyre, I just couldn't get it to come back onto the road, and it took about 500 or 600 yards at very high speed to coax it back onto the road. And I kept saying to myself over and over again, you're going too fast, you've got to lose more speed. And in the end, I just seemed to be walking the car down towards Forest Elbow. The magnesium wheel started to break up under the car, and I could hear fragments banging up under the chassis, so I waited for a break in the traffic and drove across to the right-hand side of Mountain Straight and put that damaged wheel on the grass and drove it all the way down on the grass to save it from breaking up.
A sad sight for the Holden Dealer team as car 1 heads for the back of the pit, so Peter Brock is out of the race. Alan Moffat out of the race, but still joining in the spirit of the things as he tries to get help for John Goss to get him out there, because Forbes and Nagus are closing bit by bit. Colin Bond well back now, running around 5th, but still trying terribly hard. Never gives up, does Colin Bond.
Bob Forbes going past him to also call into the pits and therefore go on to wet weather rubber. And in the meantime, Goss has just about finished that changeover, so he's out now, whilst most of his sparring companions, his opposition, are coming in to do what he's just been forced to do.
Car with headlights, car 4. Here he comes now. He's in hot pursuit, and Bob Forbes is flying. If the track's wet, he's trying to ignore it. And the gap between them is down to 7.2 seconds. So he's certainly catching him. We've never had a finish like this at Bathurst. And in the lead is Kevin Bartlett, the old hand of racing. so badly injured earlier this year in a race at New Zealand. Who would have thought he'd have recovered from those terrible injuries to be in a car leading Bathurst in the closing laps of this race? And what exciting laps. Oh, talking of excitement, things still happening, cars spinning on the circuit here. It's the Don Holland car, and all spinning. It's definitely a slow up by Forbes. The front wheel looks like it's got a bit of mud on it. He's either spun or hit something.
Going into the cutting, I left my braking too late. I was trying very, very hard, and instead of trying to make the corner, I just went straight ahead up a little track, and then I had to back out and get going again.
Rod McRae, although I can't see any sign of McRae's car around the course. He's number 20. We've lost him somewhere.
And in fact, a most fearsome crash, whereas McRae aquaplaned apparently off Conrod Straight, cleaned up trees and demolished his motor car.
There it is. 1 lap to go. 6.2 kilometres.
And Forbes still in pursuit. Car 4. Been a gallant effort. Had a spin or something which slowed him down. He's dropped back a little bit. And Kevin Bartlett only has to finish now to win the most prized race in all of Australia. A unique event.
A marvellous challenge from Forbes and a tremendously well-judged, well-driven, well-prepared race by Goss, by Bartlett and by their team manager, Max McLeod. Forbes in full flight for the final time on Conrod Straight. A great effort.
It is Kevin Bartlett who takes the checkered flag to win the 1964 Hardy-Broder 1000 for John Goss, and it's an elated John Goss in the pit who at last has won the Hardy-Broder 1000.